Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name's Nathan Harvey. My dad, Stephen Harvey, will be joining us in just a couple of minutes. Wanted to jump on here and give a hot take that I'm going to say, although it shouldn't be hot, but I think with the way that this team wants to go forward, maybe people are thinking other things. Different direction. The way the NFL is turned, they're thinking another direction, and I want to jump in with this. There was a report out today by Dan McNeil from the Danny Mac Show saying that sources confirmed that these four coaches are on the Bears list, finalists for the head coach. Ben Johnson, OC of the Detroit Lions, Brian Flores, DC of the Minnesota Vikings, Joe Brady, OC for the Buffalo Bills, and then Mike Vrabel, who was the former head coach of the Tennessee Titans. And I decided I wanted to talk about who the Bears' next head coach should be because, as it currently stands, these are the available head coaching spots. It is the Jets, Saints, and the Bears. Those are the available ones. And when we're talking about the Bears, when's the last time they had a good culture, I would say? Because every time I think of the Bears, they had, a couple good seasons with Mitch Trubisky, with Matt Nagy as the head coach, and then he got fired at the end of it because it just wasn't good enough. And then you had a couple, Lovie Smith also had a very, very good season, but then he got canned. The Bears, for how many years now, haven't had a quarterback throw for 4,000 yards, haven't had a 30 passing touchdown quarterback. They've been all over the place in a losing culture. And then they have Justin Fields at the quarterback. Then fans thought, oh no, Justin Fields will be good again. He's our starter. Don't draft Caleb Williams. They get off him, and Caleb Williams looks much better even from the get-go than Justin Fields ever did. But when is this sort of mantra of the Bears will keep losing and being disappointing, when is that going to leave? And I think that'll leave this offseason because I think that the next head coach of the Chicago Bears should be Mike Vrabel. Think about the other coaches here, right? Ben Johnson would be first-time head coach. Brian Flores, who has a lawsuit with the NFL and who absolutely ripped on Tua. He apologizes for it, but ripped on Tua. And then finally, the last one's Joe Brady with the Buffalo Bills, who, yes, he did reinvent a nice Bills offense, but I think in totality, the way the Bills offense looked in a couple spots this season, while albeit it looked good, but it seemed kind of one-dimensional in one idea because it's kind of easy to spot. The running game this past week against the Rams wasn't that great. You barely used James Cook, and Josh Allen was really the only primary runner for the Buffalo Bills this past week. So if you don't have an effective run game, Joe Brady's offense kind of breaks down because his offense relies on efficient running game, which the Bills haven't had in a couple spots this season. And also, if Josh Allen throws 30% completion percentage like he did against Baltimore, he went 9 of 30, and then he threw 30% completion percentage against the Houston Texans. Well, your quarterback play isn't good enough, and somehow they were still in that game. So for the Bears job, I would not go first-time head coach, and I would not go with a defensive coordinator who, yes, is doing a very good job this season, but what we've seen so far from his head coaching standpoint is he rips on young players, and if he doesn't like you, he'll tell you right to your face in Brian Flores. For me, it's Mike Vrabel. They need a culture change. They desperately need one. A losing culture, and Mike Vrabel, what does it bring? First of all, it brings a serious I understand that the NFL is big on offensive minds as your head coach, but we got to think about Mike Vrabel was a phenomenal defensive player. Yes, he did have he does have a defensive mind, obviously, being a linebacker in the NFL when he did play. But that would also help Caleb Williams because he is a good defensive head coach as well as a culture builder. He could help Caleb Williams spot defensive coverages much quicker. Because if I remember exactly, and people are obviously going to call me out on this because they have their own opinions and who's at blame for that Lions late game blunder. You could see Caleb Williams scanning the field to try to spot the coverage, and it took him probably 7 to 10 seconds. Everyone's lined up, and then he's waiting, and you could see him scan the field, trying to get the coverage, then he stands up, and then he snaps the ball. I guarantee you, if Mike Vrabel's out there really honing it, I think Matt Eberflus, he was just a bad coach to begin with, and we've seen it with more experienced, better coaches in that field, Jim Harbaugh being a perfect example of it. Brandon Staley was a defensive guy. Brought him over to Los Angeles, and the names on paper for the Los Angeles Chargers on defense were insane. We're talking about Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Asante Samuel Jr. got there. And then you also had Derwin James, J.C. Jackson coming off of 2 monster seasons in New England. On paper, that defense should have been top 3, if not number 1. But Brandon Staley wasn't a good head coach. So what did he do for 3 seasons? Give up the most amount of points and the most amount of yards at the beginning of a quarterback's career. That's what Justin Herbert had to deal with for 3 years, and we think Justin Herbert is sort of kind of not living up to his name. Well, it's hard to do that when you're getting outscored on the opposite side and your defense isn't stopping anything. When it comes to the Chicago Bears, though, Matt Eberflus, he's just not a good head coach. So you bring in a defensive head coach to fix up the defense, which can get cooked occasionally, which we saw early on in the Lions game. If it wasn't for a Jahmyr Gibbs fumble, they would have gone up big time early in the first half, and I guarantee you morale would have dropped, and I think the Lions could have gone in cruise control for a large part of that game. But instead, fumble, keep it in the game, don't score. The Bears kept it close throughout the entire game. So it would change the quickness, I think, of Caleb Williams is his survey of the field, get the defensive coverage down quicker so he can get plays off faster, so he will be better at identifying coverages. The second will be, and I mentioned this, winning culture. Think about what Tennessee was for years. They made it to they made it to one Super Bowl way back when, 24, 25 years ago, and lost to the Rams, if I'm not mistaken. But since then, what have the Titans done? They were the number one seed in the AFC and got absolutely blown out in the playoffs. I mean, that's it. In my recent memory, the Titans have not been a very good team. They've had occasional moments, but in totality, it wasn't it. But what did Tennessee Titans players especially really hone in on when it came to Mike Vrabel? He's a player's coach. It's the same reason why we give credit to some of these coaches like DeMeco Ryans, like people give credit to Antonio Pierce. That's why players fight for him. That's why Devontae Adams wanted Antonio Pierce to be the next head coach. We look at Andy Reid. Players love Andy Reid. What happened to Bill Belichick? And we're going to talk about it later on the show. His method didn't work. He refused to change, and he shut out some players. Specifically, his starting quarterback that year, Mac Jones, and his departing message was, I'm not even going to tell you you're emergency quarterback 3. That's what players don't want. That's what teams look at and be like, I don't know if I want that from my team that has been a complete disappointment, and people are, fans are very frustrated at it. So for me, it's Mike Vrabel. You got to get a culture builder. Ben Johnson's a first-time head coach. Brian Flores, last time we saw him as a head coach, he ripped on Tua. Joe Brady, he'll be a first-time head coach. Mike Vrabel is an experienced head coach. I'm shocked he didn't get signed this past offseason. And if this report is true, that the final 4 coaches are Ben Johnson, Brian Flores, Joe Brady, and Mike Vrabel Vrabel's going to get a job. He is a top 3 head coaching hire this season. So if you want a culture builder, which you desperately need one, because it's kind of weird. Players were happy, and I think Cole Kmet said it was a sigh of relief that Matt Eberflus was out of the building, and they have arguably one of their worst games of this entire season. They put up 4 yards in the first half. 13 total points against a 49ers team that lost its top 2 running backs. That the team in general just hasn't played very well. The defense has gotten smoked at large parts of the season. So for me, give me Mike Vrabel. Give me a culture. Give me a winning culture. Give me a player's coach. You need something. What is there to build on right now? The offense isn't playing up to its standard, up to at least what it's on paper. Defense, that was the number 1 best defense through second half of the season. That's all I heard in the offseason when talking about the Bears. They had the number 1 defense the second half of the season. Okay. What about this season, though? That's what I care about. Your offensive line should be better. It's not. It's terrible. It's pretty bad. Oh, the running game. We have DeAndre Swift. Yeah, the offensive line is a massive part of that running game. If your offensive line can't hold up, look at Saquon on the Giants. Very good running back. Very key piece of that offense. But now look at Saquon on the Eagles. Oh, he's the best running back in the game and on pace to set NFL history in rushing yards for a season. Give me a culture builder. Give me a winning mindset. Give me someone who will keep players accountable. Give me Mike Vrabel, next head coach of the Chicago Bears. And with that, I bring in my dad, Stephen Harvey. How are you doing today on this Tuesday?
I'm good, Nate. I enjoyed your take there. I agree with you. I'm not sure Mike Vrabel wants to go to the Chicago Bears.
I'm sure he wants a job.
Yeah, but I think he'll have multiple choices. I really do. I think that there'll be other jobs there for him if he wants them. And the Bears, my God, we're going to talk about them. The chaotic situation they have with their from top to bottom now. It's crazy, huh?
Yeah.
And kind of panning out as maybe we predicted before the season started.
I said they go 7-10. I gave them at least a little bit more, respectable record. You came in and said 5-12.
Yeah.
And it's looking like 4-13 right now.
Yeah.
It's not looking good. But let's jump into the main part of our show today. So let's begin with the first topic of today's show. So A.J. Brown called out the Eagles' passing game after their win over the Carolina Panthers, and veteran defensive end Brandon Graham hinted at the fallout between Brown and Jalen Hurts, claiming they're no longer friends. Take a listen to A.J. Brown and Brandon Graham.
Offense wasn't good enough. What are some things you think that the offense needs to improve on? Passing. How hard is it as a receiver to get into a rhythm when you guys are only throwing the ball like 20 times? Incredibly tough.
The person that's complaining need to be accountable. And I'm just being honest. You know what I'm saying? Like, and he know this. I don't know the whole story, but I know that one is trying. And I mean, 11 could be a little better with how he respond to things. And they was friends before this. It's like, man, but things have changed, and I understand that because life happens. But it's the business side that we have to make sure that we don't let the personal get in the way of the business, and that's what we got to do better as right now.
So I want to know, how big of an issue do you think that this is for the Philadelphia Eagles when they're 11-2? That's the interesting. They're 11-2, and we're having problems like this.
I think it could be an issue, actually. My take on this, in the city of brotherly love, there isn't any between A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts. No love between those two guys. They're not happy. I think basically it's a situation for A.J. Brown where, he's averaged 97 catches for almost 1,500 yards and almost 10 TDs in the prior 2 years. This year, he's had 48 catches for 836 yards and 4 TDs, which is on pace for, 67 catches, 1,170 yards, and 6 TDs, which isn't bad, which is good. Over 1,000 yards generally is a really successful season for a receiver, but he's an elite receiver, and he's unhappy, and I can understand why. He only got 4 targets in the last game, and even though they won, and they're 11-2, they beat the Carolina Panthers. And his post-game availability, after a season low 4 targets, he's unhappy, and he threw his helmet on the sidelines there. They asked him about that, and he said 3 and out. He's a man of few words. He says it's incredibly hard to get into a rhythm when you're only throwing the ball 21 times a game. You heard that. There's not much. He says there's not much conversation between him and Hurts about the passing game. Barkley is the new focal point, having an MVP worthy season, and it's hard to argue with his results, right? And Sirianni's kind of bought into that. He's opted to ride a ball control attack, and the emergence of a young, talented defense to 9 consecutive wins. Hurts only has 5 interceptions this year compared to 15 last year. They seem to have found a winning formula. I'm not sure why they would change. I think A.J. Brown, maybe he needs to get into and buy into the new scheme.
I find it incredibly disappointing in a player of A.J. Brown's caliber calling out his own offense when you're 11-2. Like, this is why the Eagles either have a terrible culture, have a head coaching issue, because once again, what does Nick Sirianni do? Doesn't call offense, doesn't call defense, doesn't call special teams. He's a locker room guy. In the past 2 seasons, the primary issue with the Eagles has been locker room problems. We saw last year A.J. Brown, in a win over Minnesota, but early on in the year, get upset with Jalen Hurts. And we saw that in pieces throughout the rest of the season, where we saw some fractures, and then all of a sudden, a massive break after week 11. Or it might have been week 13. They were 11-1, so it'll be week 13. So, what's happening with Philly? Again, we see players upset after wins. And yes, is Jalen Hurts at fault for some of the... Yes, people breaking down online some of Jalen Hurts' miscalculations or misreads. Yes, that's completely understandable. But you're winning football games. And in fact, this is a winning formula. Because if we look at Jalen Hurts, the first weeks 1 to 4, when he was primarily passing the football, and then the bye week, by the week 5 bye week, and let's bring up the numbers. Jalen Hurts is a completely different quarterback, and he's a much better quarterback the past, 8 weeks? Week 6 through 14. Week 5 was the bye week. So since the bye week, they're 9-0. He's passing only 21 times. Completion percentage is essentially the same. He has 50 fewer passing yards per game. Passing touchdowns to interceptions. This is the big thing we talked about. What's wrong with Jalen Hurts? He's throwing so many picks. Well, now he's 12-1. Pass rating of 113.7. Meanwhile, the first 4 weeks of the season, they were 2-2. Passing attempts, he had 33, so that's 12 more passing attempts per game. Completion percentage was the same at 68. Passing yards per game, 232.5. Touchdowns, interceptions, 4-4. Passer rating, 85. This was a bad Eagles team in the first 4 weeks. Since the bye week, they've been 9-0. They have fewer losses since the bye week than Kansas City Chiefs do. So if you're telling me that you have a problem with winning football games, that is a personal issue. That has nothing to do with anybody, any scheme. You're winning football games, and you're not going for a paycheck. They just paid you $32 million. You signed a redid offer, $96 million for 3 years. This offseason, it's not a contract year. You're not performing poorly. You just want more catches.
It's about him. It's not about the team. It's about A.J. Brown.
Saquon Barkley, I want to say, Saquon Barkley had the third most rushing attempts in the first 4 weeks, and he also had 4.4 yards per attempt. And why don't you go to a guy that now is number one in rushing attempts since the bye week and has 6.2 yards an attempt? That's second in the NFL. Isaac Guerrero, if I'm pronouncing his last name right. He is 6.3, but he's only played 7 of those games. So I don't know if I guarantee in a couple weeks he probably won't even be considered, qualified running back in that time frame.
And Barkley is a chance to break the NFL.
He's on pace to break the record.
He's on the pace to break it, right? And do you think that the Eagles are following the Ravens winning formula, right? Pass less, run more.
Yeah, exactly.
Pass less,
seems
run
like
more.
A truly efficient offense that keeps working, whether it's the Ravens or the Eagles. And I think, honestly, the Eagles are a much better version of the Baltimore Ravens because it's the same scheme. Run the ball a lot, throw it when you have to. And it works at a very high clip. But as soon as you start throwing the ball a lot more, mistakes increase. It's the same thing with Josh Allen. Now, he had one phenomenal game this past week. But if you ask him to put the Superman cape on every single game, that's where he had a couple missed throws on third down in this game against the Rams, but that's where you get into he's making mistakes. He's trying to make the big time play every single play because he feels like he has to. There is no consistency. We saw that last year and the year before. He has a very high turnover rate. But this season, what do? James Cook got the running game going. They were more effective in the running game. Used his legs, in big time spots. Toned down the passing. Increase the offensive efficiency, take the ball out of Josh Allen's hands more, which decreases the chance of a mistake. And look, they're one of the best teams in the NFL. The Eagles, based on health, you could argue that they're the best team in the NFL. But if we have fractures like this, should you have wiped the Panthers out? Probably, although Bryce Young is playing tremendous. But if we're worried about blowouts instead of W's, that's where I get concerned. Because what do you care about more? Getting 8 catches for 100 yards and having a close game, or you get 6 catches for 60 yards and you blow out teams. But your running back has 130 rushing yards.
That's where I said it seems like it's more about him than it is about the team, and that's a problem. And now it might be premature, but I'm now concerned for the next week and the following week and the week after that. Because we saw what last year was. We saw throughout the season where A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith or whoever was frustrated in the offense. And then we hit, after they go 11-1, 1-6 record the rest of the year. And a horrible playoff loss to Baker Mayfield, who looked like an MVP caliber quarterback in that game. I don't think their defense is going to flounder this year at the end.
Probably
They have new leadership there, new players, some very good young talent. A great defensive coach who's the players have bought into his scheme. I don't think their defense is going to fail them, and I don't think they're going to go away from the new formula with pass less, run more. And Barkley is going to get that record. And the Eagles, who knows? Maybe they'll make the Super Bowl. We'll have to wait and see.
I think based on the Lions' health, there is a very, very good shot of that. But if Nick Sirianni doesn't call plays and he's a locker room guy, why is there so many issues in the locker room? I don't think your star receiver, who he's not upset because of a contract. He's not upset because he's playing poorly. It's just he wants the ball more, it seems. If you're a locker room guy, you think that's positive energy? You think that you should condone that type of behavior or be like, you know what? I'm cool with it. We just saw what happened last year. It broke the team, with several arguments, and then you and your quarterback were apparently, on not speaking terms. Philly, if you're not happy with winning football games just because you want the ball more, I got a problem with that. Because Are you looking just to be the superstar on your team, or do you want to be the guy who could hold up a trophy at the end of the year? A.J. Brown seems like he just wants to be that superstar guy. Based on, these comments in last year, too.
Yeah, maybe Sirianni will talk to him. You think he's brave enough to do that?
I don't think he wants to. He seems okay with it, like you read.
I don't know. Well, this just happened, so I don't know whether
we saw it last year, too. This is not new for Philly receivers or Philly quarterbacks. They
have to be careful. They got a good thing going. They don't want something to disrupt it.
Yeah.
And this could do that.
All right, let's get into some Bears news. I mentioned how I want Mike Vrabel to be their next head coach, but after a promising 4-2 start, they've spiraled into a 7-game losing streak, leading to Matt Eberflus being fired after Thanksgiving, which is the first time in over a century the franchise has made such a move. Interim head coach Thomas Brown stepped in, and it seemed to get worse. They just lost 38-13 to the San Francisco 49ers. And on top of that, now there's reportedly major drama within the front office because on a Chicago ESPN 1000 in Chicago radio station, Waddle and Sylvie reported that general manager Ryan Poles is frustrated over the power structure of the team, basically specifying that Ryan Poles has an issue that he has to report to the president, which then reports to the owner. Take a listen to Waddle and Sylvie on their report.
One of the main reasons that Ryan Poles took the Bears job was because he liked the direct reporting nature to the team owner. And that when Kevin Warren was hired, he was frustrated with that from the start. That he never loved it. It was not a personal thing with Kevin, but it was something that he didn't like, that he went from reporting to the owner to now having to report to a team president who reports to the owner. There was a go-between.
So now, here's the big question. Are you surprised? You predicted, 5-12, but are you surprised that the Bears season has turned out to be this chaotic?
A little bit. I mean, I didn't think that they would disintegrate from top to bottom, and that's sort of what they've done. The Bears' mess continues to grow. Not only are the coaches being fired and the players unhappy with the way things are managed, now you've got the leadership fighting with one another. I think that this is a bad situation, and I think it could hurt their chances to land a quality coach like Mike Vrabel. They say Poles is unhappy with the team's current power structure. And you heard this. Who was the guy that was just talking about this?
Waddle and Sylvie. It's the radio show.
They put it reasonably well. If it's true, Warren says he wants to. He looks forward to working with Poles and the team's search for a new head coach. But maybe the feeling is not mutual. That's not what Poles thought was going to happen. That he was going to be in control of the search, and he would report directly to McCaskey about that. He took the job with that understanding that he'd be able to report directly to the owner, and there was no buffer. And if he has any issue, he could go straight to McCaskey. But now you have Warren in the middle, and I don't understand why they did that. Why did they hire a president to be in between the GM and the owner? I'm not sure why they did that. He's unhappy when Warren was hired as president and became the go-between. He told people he trusted inside the organization that maybe he never wanted to have taken the job if he knew this was going to happen. This is a theory, I think. I'm not sure. They haven't been confirmed by Poles or anybody in the Bears organization, but it's not a known thing. But I wouldn't be shocked if there's a parting of the ways at the end of the season between Poles and the Bears.
They put up their third worst offensive performance of the season so far. And Thomas Brown, who I think, I feel bad for him because he went from passing game coordinator to now being boosted into interim offensive coordinator, then got thrusted into interim head coach in a matter of a month?
Yeah.
I feel terrible for him because he's in a situation that is a lose, lose, and lose.
Yeah, and his first game as head coach, what was the score?
38-13.
Yeah.
Against the 49ers team.
It was 24-0 at one point.
They had 4 offensive yards in the first half compared to over 300 for the San Francisco 49ers.
Crazy.
This right now is a terrible franchise, a terrible organization because there's no structure. I don't think. What's the purpose of this team president? Does George McCaskey not want to be involved in as much? He wants to just oversee the big things and let Warren take over and micromanage the rest. I can completely understand why Ryan Poles is frustrated. If you get promised that you will be able to speak directly with the owner with ownership, and now all of a sudden there's a middleman, it's like, but I was promised when I took this job I'd be speaking directly to the big guy, and now I got to go through you. And it seems like in press conferences, Ryan Poles is fed up with it. I don't think Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles are going to necessarily either agree or have effective communication to hire the next head coach.
Yeah, well,
it's going to be either Ryan Poles' full decision or Kevin Warren is going to make the full decision, and Ryan Poles has to live with it or leave. Mm-hmm. I really don't think, just based on body language and based on just how everything is transpiring now, that and now being fed up with ownership over being lied to about the level of communication, that I think this will be an amicable decision. They might just have to live with it.
I think they'll try to live with it because I think it's unlikely that they're going to have a parting of the ways, because if Warren is the one left there and Poles leaves, he'll be looking for both a head coach and a GM. He has no experience in hiring either. So what candidate is going to look at that situation and say, hey, this is great, I want to be involved there? Right. I think that's really bad. I think they have to do something to try to patch things up here, or maybe they kick Warren out.
They've had 3 offensive coordinators, 2 head coaches, a new passing game coordinator,
new offensive coordinator, a guy who was the
Shane Waldron, Thomas
coach,
Brown, and Chris Beatley.
And now Eric Washington is calling the defensive plays.
This is a complete mess. They have the worst total offense in the NFL. They're 30th in passing with that plethora of receivers. They're 23rd in rushing, which is actually kind of surprising behind how bad that offensive line has been. Their defense is the only, somewhat positive thing, and really the only thing you can look at is they're not giving up that many points. They're the 10th best scoring defense in the NFL. It's just their offense couldn't put up any points because their offensive line's not great, which affects their running game, which affects Caleb Williams' passing time. Caleb Williams, he hasn't performed extremely well. Once again, we put this label, generational talent, on quarterbacks coming out of college. Why? The past 2 times we've done that, Trevor Lawrence and Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams has not lived up to the definition, and Trevor Lawrence, if both were starters, is on the same level statistically as Mac Jones. That's how generational these quarterbacks have been. Generational quarterback, I don't think it's fair to put it on rookie quarterbacks. And what's kind of surprising is it kind of looks, just based on some of Caleb Williams' reactions, that he thought it'd be somewhat at the same level as playing at USC. He's surprised that he doesn't have the time, or he can't dance around in the pocket, he can't loop around and turn back. He's kind of surprised at that. And what has it led to? Let's bring it up. Your favorite graphic that we've ever created on this show, I think, is the Bears' schedule. Loss, 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 and loss.
Loss, loss, loss.
Which, once again, I want to preface this. At this current moment, you have the Bears with more wins than they currently do in real life.
Yeah.
You have them at 5 wins right now, and as of today, they have 4.
I don't think they win another game. Look at the schedule. They're not going to beat the Vikings. They're not going to beat the Lions. They're not going to beat the Seahawks. They're not going to beat Green Bay. All those teams need those wins. They got to have the wins. The Lions want the Vikings want to have the highest possible seed, and they're not going to win the division probably because the Lions are probably going to lock it down, and that's why they need to keep winning. And so they're not going to beat the Lions. The Seahawks desperately need to keep winning.
They're fighting for the division.
They're fighting for the division. They have the lead right now. If they win out, they'll be all set. And Green Bay, they need to win because their division, there's going to be 3 teams coming out of there going to the playoffs. So they're not going to win again.
I think it is very unlikely that they win, especially with the way things are going. There's too much movement, too much chaos. That's why a first-time head coach walking in there, I think you would have to have some serious stones and be like, oh, I could fix this, and have an ego through the roof to just imagine that you're gonna walk into this situation with the amount of talent that they currently possess and the fans hungry for some level of success and a lower level of chaos. And you're going to go in there thinking that you could fix every single problem. You don't have an offensive line. Your quarterback's play isn't great. Your defense isn't great, but that could also be due to the offense not being effective whatsoever. You can just look at the Bucs in 2019. Jameis Winston threw 30 interceptions. The defense was out there every 3 minutes. I can understand why the defense wasn't great. Tom Brady you bring in, he lifts the offense up tremendously. The defense becomes one of the best defenses in the NFL, probably because they're not on the field every 3 minutes. So I think there's too many moving pieces right now and too much that needs to be fixed for Chicago. Going into the year, high expectations. Some people had them making the playoffs, and even one person, Nick Wright from FS1, says they could have gone to the Super Bowl, which that was ridiculous in of itself.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But your quarterback is promising. You have levels of talent there on. It's the same thing as the Chargers.
They have a terrible offensive line.
That's true.
They have decent talent at wide receiver.
Decent. I think you're not giving that enough credit. DJ Moore is a consistent 1,000-yard receiver. Keenan Allen can be good. Injury.
Dunce, what do you think his season so far?
I would say because of the scheme and the fact that you have 3 offensive coordinators, I'll leave it up to a to be determined.
Okay.
Give me a later
fair.
date.
Sweat.
Good enough.
I don't think he has played that. He hasn't played up to what they expected, but the offensive line is horrible. That's their problem. Their defense is okay, but Eberflus got fired. He was the one calling the defensive plays. Now they have Eric Washington calling them. Sure. And 38-13. Yeah, that was the first game out with a new team.
No, same team. New interim head coach.
No, I'm saying new leadership team, new coaching staff.
I wouldn't put this on Thomas Brown. You walk into a 49ers team that's playing for its division, that just lost its 2 running backs and had something to prove. You, on the other hand, are surrounded by utter chaos. I'm not surprised. I'm really not, because what have the Bears showed us in recent history? Not much, to be honest with you. 2 playoff appearances with Mitch Trubisky, and you lost in the wild card. As of late, you had a quarterback that you wanted to hold on to but didn't, and then there was.
At one point they got rid of Lovie Smith when he had a 10-6 record.
Yeah.
They'd be dying for that now. A 10-6 record, they would be high-fiving everybody.
I agree with that.
Right?
All right, we're going to take a quick break, but coming up, we have a guest coming on the show. It's my brother, John Harvey. We'll be talking to him for about 10-20 minutes, so stay tuned for that right after this break.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the comment.
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance, and why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM data gift.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name is Nathan Harvey. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of today's show. And as always, when we talk about these two teams, I have my brother along with me, John Harvey. How you doing today on this Tuesday?
Doing great, Nate. Thank you both for having me.
Of course, anytime. Let's jump right into it. Let's get to the breaking news that broke, last night, the night before. Juan Soto is now worth $765 million on a 15-year contract with the New York Mets. They took away from the Yankees. Yankees offered 16 years at $760 million, and it was reported the Red Sox 15 years, $700 million. And the disparity between the Yankees and the Mets was a $2 million free suite for his family. That's what really drew him to the New York Mets. But he's on the Mets. The Mets lost in the NLCS to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Juan Soto was a massive part of the Yankees' playoff success. I think him and Stanton were the only reason why they got there. So, John, I'm curious. I want to start with you. What's your reaction to the Mets signing Juan Soto?
I think it's great. I think he's a huge addition, and the Mets have needed a strong 300-plus hitter for a long time. So if he can keep up the level of production he's produced in recent years, then I think he'll be a very welcome addition. 15 years is a long time, so I don't hold up on the back end of that deal if he ends up sticking around that long, especially once he isn't able to play an outfield position anymore. But for what the Mets are trying to do of winning a World Series in the next couple of years, it's a great start to the offseason for us.
I think it's finally, what we've seen from Steve Cohen so far is he's willing to spend a bunch of money. Highest payroll the past few seasons. Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander were on paper pretty decent signings. Age was a concern for both of them, but they should have been pretty decent signings for the Mets pitching. They completely just fell apart. This time around, Juan Soto, very good hitter. I would say average outfielder. My opinion, and you could disagree with me on this one, my opinion on this is I'm okay with the signing, but it doesn't really solve their issues. Pitching has been something that the Mets have wanted for the past couple of seasons. That's why they got Verlander. That's why they got Scherzer. Pitching has been an issue. And this season, based on just the wins above replacement, they were bottom 10 in every single facet of pitching. Starting pitching, relief pitching, all pitching, bottom 10 in the MLB. So they haven't really fixed any problem. If anything, they still have massive holes there they still need to fill.
I agree with you. Pitching is definitely the biggest concern at this point, and I think really was heading into the offseason, just knowing that our top three starters were going on into free agency regardless. But they really do need to pull another top-of-the-line starter so that Senga doesn't have to come back and shoulder a lot of that weight of expecting him to be what he was 2 years ago.
Well, I don't know if you saw the recent news about, I would say an hour ago, there was breaking news. The Yankees, one pitcher is already, off of the free agent market, and that's Max Fried. I think it's Max Fried.
Yes,
he got signed 8 years, $218 million to the New York Yankees. So they're putting their money somewhere else, but that does take another pitching talent that the Mets need away from them.
It does. I did see that, and I think that's a logical move for the Yankees given the position they're in. Ultimately, Fried wasn't the Mets' first target anyway, and I think they're still very much in the pursuit of Corbin Burns at this point. So if they can sign him, then I think this offseason looks a lot better.
What happens to the polar bear in this situation?
I think it's tough to say. I think he'll probably end up sitting in free agency a bit longer, just because he really isn't a priority for any team. I personally am not the biggest fan of his, just because paying for what he's asking when he's 30 and he's a 240 hitter, it just isn't worth that amount. They'd be paying him what he's asking pretty much solely because he came up with the Mets and he's a good story.
I would say he hit over 30 home runs the last season. Yeah, he bats 240, but...
Yeah, with Juan Soto in the lineup, too, he's going to get more pitches to hit, I would think. Better pitches to see.
He was also the reason why the Mets were able to move on from the Brewers in the postseason. He hit that massive, 3-run home run that really sent them, to the NLDS, if I'm not mistaken.
So he's a free agent now. Did the Mets have an interest in signing him back?
Yes.
I don't know. They do.
I saw something that was it the owner didn't want to comment on signing Juan Soto, but he made it very clear that he still very much would like to have Pete Alonso back. At least that was what I saw.
Yeah.
Well, it's easy to say that. Yeah, right. Oh. It's easier to say you want a homegrown player back when he's a fan favorite, but at the same time, it does still come down to dollars in the end. If he's asking for more than he's worth, there's a point at which it just doesn't make sense.
Fortunately for you, though, the Yankees apparently don't have him on a radar, so they can't get back at you for signing one of their own.
I'll have to see what they do. They need another bat, right? They got to have somebody to put in Soto's place. They did make it to the World Series with him. Now he's not there.
There's a couple options. I think one that would be attractive is Nolan Arenado. I think he'd be a very good fit.
Uh-huh.
But no, I'll let you comment on that, John. Do you have anything? I didn't want to cut you off.
I actually it's interesting you bring that up. I would probably prefer Nolan Arenado to Pete Alonso if they were to bring him in and transition him to first base.
Interesting. I will say, the Mets, though, pitching-wise, have not gone completely dry because they did sign Frankie Montas, which I don't love that signing, high ERA, and inefficient pitcher. And then Clay Holmes, which was, I think, another Yankees steal, by the way. I'll put that out there. The Mets are trying to become, a better Yankees, I think. They're sort of, because the Yankees always, historically, have been much farther past, reputation than the Mets have. You go around to various countries, you don't see Mets hats, you see Dodgers and primarily Yankees hats. The Mets are now trying to creep closer to have that prominence in the MLB, and that's why I think Steve Cohen went out and spent $300 million payrolls on Max Scherzer, top-tier pitcher at the time, and then Justin Verlander just go out winning Cy Youngs at, 39 years old, 37, 39 years old. Trying to put the Mets more so on the map. They're a New York market, so it's already a massive market, but take the Mets, put them smack dab and saying, we're making some big-time moves. And not only that, we're going to add a little sub news to it. Sub-breaking news is we're stealing them from the Yankees. So it's kind of like a big screw you to the Yankees. We're taking some of your own. But the Frankie Montas thing, I don't love that move personally. Also former Yankee, I might add.
Yeah. Well, Steve Cohen has been a savior for the Mets.
Absolutely.
And he's got the deep pocket, and he may not be done. We'll wait and see. The pitching.
I think that's where I would go as well, is it really depends on what they do from here. If Montas ends up as the ace, then no, I don't love that move. But if they're able to bring in 2 or 3 other pitchers and he ends up being the 4th man in the rotation, then I think it looks like a lot better of a move.
Yes, but it's just about signing the players that you need, signing the depth you need. Because pitching for me, we saw in the postseason, Quintana couldn't see the strike zone late in the series in the NLCS. He just couldn't find it at all. Ball. He couldn't find it. Meanwhile, you saw in the game against, the Phillies, if I'm not mistaken, a little shaky start, kind of. It was kind of shaky early, and then he was able to, have some stability.
He scared the hell out of me at that game when we were there.
Well, Edwin Diaz also late in that game too. Edwin Diaz, he also couldn't find the strike zone either. So pitching is the only thing that I think that they need right now. Yes, getting a star hitter, especially with Pete Alonso.
Everybody needs pitching, though.
Right.
It's always everybody.
But when you're bottom 10 in the MLB,
you never have enough pitching.
When you're bottom 10 in the MLB compared to the rest of your peers, that's an issue.
You made it to the NLCS.
Yes, based on Pete Alonso getting you to the NLDS.
Well, now they've got an even better hitter.
Francisco Lindor hitting a grand slam to send you to the NLCS. It was very opportunistic baseball, just like the Yankees. They were opportunistic. Soto home run, Stanton home run. I think everybody agrees. If the Mets and the Dodgers, either one of those NLCS teams going up against the Yankees were losing. I don't think there's much debate about that. John, what do you have any comment you want, or should we move on to your other favorite team?
We can move on. I agree with what you're saying.
Let's go with some positivity to negativity, because the Jets seem like they keep getting in their own way. They got eliminated from the playoffs after their overtime loss against the Miami Dolphins, and now this is the longest active playoff drought streak in the 4 major sports. And we've heard so much negativity from the Jets, this season. We have Woody Johnson reports that they wanted to bench Rodgers after their loss overseas against the Minnesota Vikings. Then we hear that the players wanted the season to be over already. You hear Rodgers, upset after every loss, even though he's not playing well. And then the past couple weeks, they're winning, they look great, and in the second half, a complete collapse. So, John, they have a head coaching opening. I'm going to show this to our viewers. There's a head coach opening right now. Jets, Saints, and Bears all have head coach openings. You fired Robert Saleh. Defense plummeted. Jeff Ulbrich does not bring the same, I think, level of coaching defensively or offensively that Robert Saleh did. So I know you're not, an analyst or an insider on this, John, but your opinion, lifelong Jets fan, seeing them crumble time after time again. What should the Jets' next move be?
Lose out. Get the highest possible draft pick. Just accept that this season is over. I mean, what sense is there in playing for 1 or 2 more wins and get pick 10 instead of pick 4 or 5.
I agree with you 100%. What do you think about Aaron Rodgers? Is he a goner?
No, not is he. Should he come back? Do you want him back?
If he's coming back, I don't envision him starting the whole year. I think the Jets need somebody who can guide someone else along. They need to sign somebody on the younger side or draft someone with a high pick and just give them the reins about halfway through next season and just let it ride there. If Rodgers wants to be that guy, that would be great. If not, find someone else.
I would say his ego wouldn't allow that. I don't see him being wanted to be a bridge quarterback.
Well, hold on. I'm going to take accountability. I'm going to call you out on this. You did say that they might want to bring back Rodgers if he were to be that bridge guy on last show.
No, I said it at the Giants, not at the Jets.
Still, though, it's a bridge quarterback somewhere.
But I think that my thinking there was that Rodgers' ego is so big that he'll think, they're thinking they're bringing me in as a bridge quarterback, but I'm going to play so great that they won't be able to sit me down. That's how I'm thinking. He might accept that kind of situation. That would be the only way I think he might do it.
Rodgers is mad after he performs poorly and won't accept true accountability. Like that's my what does and here's the big thing. What does Rodgers bring now?
Old
experience.
Age.
That's it. Experience. But he doesn't perform well. He doesn't move well.
He actually played well on Sunday, right? He had over 300 yards passing.
This is the first time in 35 games in 1,000 days.
He did do it. I mean, the game actually he was a positive factor in that game. And if somebody thinks he's still got something in the tank, Bill Belichick thinks he still has something in the tank. He thinks the injury is lingering on him. If he can get himself really healthy, that he might be someone who could still do it.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. Is I think it makes sense to say, look, you can stay. We'll let you run the show. But at the same time, if you continue to show signs of slipping, the team's not playing well, then at a certain point, we both need to be realistic here. Look, you want to get the last bit of football out of yourself, and we're running a team here. So considering you're in your 40s, at a certain point, we need to plan for this.
Well,
he can agree to it or not.
Sorry, John. If Rodgers goes, Adams is gone.
Truthfully, I don't think that's the biggest concern for me, because ultimately, what does that really matter? If we have a young quarterback, we already have a great wide receiver. I'd rather them develop him, let him really run the show, rather than have another star and they're all just fighting each other for yards here and there.
Well, I think right now, if you're a budding new head coach, so Ben Johnson, Joe Brady's out there, if I'm looking and I'm a new head coach about to enter the arena here and I'm looking at the Jets situation, they have no GM. They're going to need to pay Sauce Gardner, Breece Hall, and Garrett Wilson very soon. The defense has regressed massively. The offensive line on paper looked good enough, and it's not that great. And I don't know if a 41-year-old quarterback's going to be my quarterback, and even if he is, he's not a positive influence in my locker room. So I think, I think Mike Vrabel would be great for a number of these places that need a culture builder. I think the Bears, Mike Vrabel would be a great piece there. I think the Jets, Mike Vrabel would be a perfectly fine piece there. Because he would be, in my opinion, a better version of Robert Saleh, a defensive head coach, but he builds a winning culture. He did that with Tennessee.
I would agree with you. I think Vrabel would be my choice of the next head coach. The Jets have proven, if nothing else, that they really need a strong defensive presence, or their defense is going to show considerable signs of regression. So having a defensive head coach who really knows what they're doing is pretty key here, and they just need to find a strong offensive coordinator to run the show, someone who works well with whoever ends up being there.
So not Nathaniel Hackett.
Preferably not Nathaniel Hackett. No.
I think Todd Downing's doing a much better job. That's what I think. I'd be okay with Todd Downing, keeping that position.
I bet he won't have it. I don't think they'll have him.
Depends on your options.
I don't think so either.
He did well. He did okay on Sunday, but prior to that, he hasn't done well. He's not been any better than Hackett.
He's got a quarterback that is a horrible influence and is 41 years old, doesn't move well. And here's something I think actually nobody talks about. Rodgers in the clutch is not that good. There have been several opportunities this season. I think there's 5 or 6 late game drives where Rodgers could tie the game or win it, and he throws a pick, he takes a sack, or time runs out. He's not that clutch. And I think as the years go on, at one point can we say that this is affecting what a lot of people would say is a first ballot Hall of Fame resume. And that's also just based on primarily MVP awards. That's it. Doesn't have the Super Bowls, doesn't have the playoff wins.
He has one Super Bowl win.
13 years ago?
Yeah, but he has 4 MVPs too. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt. He's going to get it.
I think if he let's say he comes back for another season and performs the exact same way as he has this past season,
then he should retire.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, can we say that this has a negative impact on his career, on his legacy?
I don't know.
A negative impact on his legacy a little bit.
Brett Favre didn't do so hot when he was with the Jets. It didn't really tarnish his.
But hold on. He went over to the Minnesota Vikings and made it to an NFC championship game, I think.
Threw an interception that cost him the game.
Right, but the fact that he was actually able to get there, and if I'm not mistaken, I could look it up very quickly. I think he was in the MVP consideration as well those past 2 seasons. Yeah, his first season with Minnesota, he was 4th in MVP. He also made a Pro Bowl. And was also, I don't know how the hell, he also got a Pro Bowl with the Jets as well. He had 22 touchdowns, 22 picks. Yikes.
Well, the Pro Bowl isn't exactly the best way of looking at things. People are getting in.
Back then it was worth something, John. Today you have the Pro Bowl games and flag football. Mac Jones made a Pro Bowl. Geno Smith made a Pro Bowl, and Tyler Huntley made a Pro Bowl. So I think it's fair to say back then it meant something.
I don't disagree with that, but I still wouldn't use that as your main baseline of performance.
MVP, he was the 4th in MVP voting at age 40. Rodgers isn't even sniffing that with his performance this season and his last season in Green Bay. He's not a good quarterback anymore.
Yeah. It's very surprising that the Jets are going to have a worse record than they did last year when Zach Wilson was their quarterback.
Zach Wilson has performed better with a coach that got fired and an offensive coordinator that currently isn't there anymore. Mm-hmm. Or is not in the same role anymore.
I don't think Woody Johnson wants Aaron Rodgers back.
No.
I think that they had this conversation the day before Saleh was fired. I'm pretty sure it was Rodgers that was in his ear about firing Saleh. And he did it, and that was a mistake. He should never have fired him. That was a big mistake.
I think Woody knows that, too, which is part of it. But
yeah.
Nate, who do you picture the Jets' opening day quarterback being next year?
Well, currently, as it stands, they have the 7th overall pick in this draft. But here's the thing. If they lose out, and let's say picks 3 to 6 win a single game, they would jump to the number 3 overall pick. Because draft picks 3 to 8 all have 3-10 records. A lot of terrible teams in the NFL this season. If the Jets, let's go positive. We've just been negative for the past 10 minutes, I would say. Let's go positive. Let's say the Jets have the 3rd overall pick, and let's say the Giants in Las Vegas have number 1 and 2 as they currently do right now. I think that's Shedeur Sanders gone, Cam Ward gone. If I'm the New York Jets, I'd trade back in the first round. I try to get draft capital because I know Carson Beck, he's not going to be a top 10 pick. He's playing way too inconsistently. Jalen Milroe had a great start to the college season, but recently he hasn't been tremendous. I think you can get him later on in the first round. I would say rookie quarterback starts week 1 for the New York Jets. Who is it? I'm not entirely sure. But I do think you trade back if you have a top 3 pick because you could get both those quarterbacks. Because the NFL, I think right now, if you look at the NFL as it currently stands right now, Tennessee and Cleveland will be shocking in the first round, but they might. And then you could argue New Orleans, but they're paying Derek Carr right now. There's not many teams that desperately need a quarterback, but luckily for the Jets, the top 2 teams do. Las Vegas and New York, they both need quarterbacks. Rookie quarterback starts week 1, though, to answer your question. I'm not sure who. It wouldn't be Shedeur or Cam Ward.
I think if it's neither of them, then it's not going to be a rookie that starts.
You think Rodgers? Oh, well, this will be complete jokes and just for, literally just for jokes. The Vikings, I saw a report today, they're not going to keep Sam Darnold. Is there a reunion with Sam Darnold and the Jets?
I think there's a world where the Jets would consider signing Sam Darnold.
I don't know. I'm not sure Sam Darnold will want to come back to the New York Jets.
Well, how about another former Jet, Geno Smith? I don't expect the Seahawks to keep him. Yeah. So is there a world considered he's 34 where they bring him in? Because, what was that?
You would need to trade for Geno. He's still under contract.
Yes, but I would be open to that considering he's in his mid-30s. He could really serve as a bridge quarterback for a couple of years. His play has been more than serviceable for the last several years.
I'm not sure he'd want to come back there either. He had a pretty bad experience with the Jets.
They're seeing ghosts. I remember that game. Oh, that was bad.
Well, I'm talking about Geno Smith.
That was Darnold.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Sam Darnold. My fault. But hold on.
Well,
in Darnold's
Geno
defense,
is much further removed.
Well, yes, but in Darnold's defense, I think Darnold would be a better option if I'm comparing the two, because Geno is a very consistent level of okay. Darnold fluctuates, but his highs are very high, as we just saw. 5 touchdowns over 300 yards. He played phenomenal football this past week. In Darnold's defense, Adam Gase was his head coach. Adam Gase should have got fired 2 years before he actually did.
Yeah, and I think that Kevin O'Connell is a special head coach when it comes to quarterbacks. Look what he's been able to do. I think that look at Kirk Cousins this year. He's terrible. Look at Sam Darnold. What he's resurrected his career. It's with O'Connell as his coach. I think
he has.
And now they have what's his name for the Giants? Daniel Jones. Now he's going to be there, and he'll wind up being the bridge quarterback to J.J. McCarthy. That's what's going to happen, I think.
Not a chance.
I do agree with you on that. I think that Jones may very well compete for the day one starting job just because McCarthy's got so little experience.
Oh,
and
John,
he's coming back. He's coming back from a knee injury.
That's
too.
A bad take. I'm sorry. In that defense as well, he also needed to get a second surgery because of inflammation on his first surgery. But saying that Daniel Jones is going to compete for the day one job, I
think he'll get it. I think he'll be the starting quarterback of the Vikings next year for the first 6 games or so. If J.J. McCarthy's, they're going to groom him to be.
Why not bring back Sam Darnold?
Because Sam Darnold wants to be the starter for the whole year.
They could franchise tag him. Hold on. Why are we even debating that? They could just franchise tag him, and then once
they're going to have to pay him a huge amount of money.
For 41,
why would they have brought Daniel Jones in?
Because who's
on
your backup?
Such a small contract if they were planning to just franchise Sam Darnold?
Because who's your
then
backup?
they wouldn't
Nick
have needed
Mullins?
him. Well, fair enough, but still. I mean, I think that the intention of bringing Jones in versus anybody else was because there's a chance he'd be on the roster down the line.
I can't see Daniel Jones suiting up in the purple and gold week 1 against whoever.
Well, why did they go get him? Why do they have him?
Nick Mullins is your backup quarterback.
No, but
when you compare Daniel Jones's resume before he signed with the Vikings to what Sam Darnold had done before signing with the Vikings, I mean, Sam Darnold's best resume item was serving as the backup quarterback for the 49ers, who are known as
I'm sure Kevin O'Connell thinks. I'm sure Kevin O'Connell thinks I can make Daniel Jones into at least as good as Sam Darnold. That's what he's thinking.
I agree with that.
What are we doing? Daniel Jones is a horrible. The Giants have a good left tackle in Andrew Thomas. They got him a star rookie receiver. They increased the firepower of the defensive line. They were the number 1 team in sacks through the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. And we're saying that Daniel Jones crapped the bed over and over again. And they also not only do they have a solidified left tackle in Andrew Thomas, they bolstered the offensive line. It's the best offensive line since probably 2016.
He played well the first few games too, and then Thomas got hurt.
Week
right?
1 against the Vikings, he couldn't see the field. We covered that game. He couldn't see the field for anything. And we're saying that Kevin, like Sam Darnold at least showed a little bit of promise in Carolina. He actually went toe-to-toe with Brady that final year. So there's something in there was something in Sam Darnold that was there. Because he went 8-9 in Carolina. With that team, I'm forgetting the head coach before when Ron Rivera got fired. Matt Rule. Matt Rule's your head coach. He gets fired midseason. Frank Reich's your head coach. He gets fired midseason.
Frank Reich, I don't even think he made it a month.
Like Sam Darnold did a perfectly okay job. Daniel Jones, what has he done? His best season was 15 passing touchdowns and 5 interceptions.
I mean,
Sam Darnold
here's the short
19 and 17 in his first 2 years with Adam Gase as a head coach.
How many rushing yards did Daniel Jones have that year?
The rushing yards.
Yeah, he did well. He had a good year that year.
The defense of Daniel Jones, I will not accept that.
I guarantee you, Kevin O'Connell sees something in Daniel Jones that he thinks he can be at least as good as Sam Darnold. And he's going to be the bridge quarterback to J.J. McCarthy.
Crazy.
He's going to be the bridge quarterback to J.J. McCarthy.
Okay.
You wait and see. I predict it, Nate. I can remember you saying that Baker Mayfield would never start another game in the NFL, and look what he's doing now. Right. Huh?
I can't believe this. Yeah, but hold on. Baker Mayfield made it to a playoffs with the Browns and won a playoff game. That was perfect.
So did Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones
won a playoff game.
Hold on. Daniel Jones went up against the 11-0 Minnesota Vikings.
Thanks for making our case.
Daniel Jones went up against the 11-0 Minnesota Vikings, who had the 30th ranked defense, and beat them. That's perfectly fine with me. And that was also his best year with Saquon Barkley playing at the top of his game with the New York Giants. This is what we're arguing here. The Minnesota Vikings have a rookie quarterback that they drafted in the first round. Yes, he did tear his meniscus and he's out for this past season. And Sam Darnold played very well because he is a decent quarterback. We're seeing Kevin O'Connell did exactly what he needed to do with Sam Darnold. He left him a little bit reckless, but refined his game just enough to put him to an 11-2 record, having a 68% completion percentage, 3,300 yards essentially, 28 touchdowns, 10 picks. Daniel Jones doesn't throw the ball downfield. We saw. Okay, have this.
Maybe he would if he had Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and T.J. Hawkinson as his pass receivers. Huh? Well, maybe.
You know what?
So I think it's in my mind, I'm not sure who the Jets quarterback's going to be next year. I really I don't know who it's going to be. I think if it's a rookie, it's not going to be one of the elite rookies who they think is going to be an elite. So would they want to do that? John doesn't think they would, and I kind of agree with him. But who would they get? Who would they bring in? Jimmy Garoppolo?
No.
Huh? I don't know.
I would prefer not.
That's a worse.
But who else is out there? Sam Darnold, but he's probably not going to want to come there. Geno Smith, he's probably not going to come back either. Those guys had bad experiences in New York. They're going to have other offers. So who would the Jets going to have?
Is there a world in which the Jets trade for Kirk Cousins?
Kirk Cousins, yeah, maybe.
Because if they put Penix in at the start of next year,
yeah,
I think the past 4 games, no touchdowns, 8 picks. I don't hate that take, John. That I don't hate.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones, the next star of the Minnesota Vikings.
The problem there is Kirk Cousins got a huge contract, right? And he hasn't played well. And he's old. He's getting old, too.
Yeah, in the same offseason, though, we have to realize that he did sign that massive contract, or massive relative contract, and also drafted a quarterback within the top 8 picks in the same offseason.
Right.
Well, they're probably feeling good about that now because Kirk Cousins has been thrown 8 interceptions and no touchdown passes the last 4 games. Yeah. Okay, well, that's something to think about. Who is going to be the Jets quarterback next year? Maybe we'll get some comments from our listeners.
Jets fans are screaming for something new. They don't want old and washed up. You know why? They just got that for the past season, and they had to deal with it for 2 off seasons.
Very well. I don't see them going with a rookie quarterback that is not thought to be someone who's generational. I just don't see it happening.
I think the challenge is the 3rd best quarterback in this draft is Milroe from Alabama.
Yeah.
And it's not like Alabama has the best track record of producing quarterbacks.
Whoa, Jalen Hurts. Hold on. Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa.
Jalen Hurts' best seasons came in a different school.
That's fair.
Tua is certainly competent, but when you think about Alabama quarterbacks, you're not thinking of superstar.
Mac Jones.
Yeah.
I can't,
Mac Jones,
Bryce Young.
or A.J. McCarron comes to mind.
Bryce Young. Although he's playing a little better now. He seems to have found his groove a little bit.
All right, John, I won't waste any more of your time. I know you're busy tonight, so thank you for taking time with us here. I greatly appreciate it. You're always welcome here on the Harvey Hour.
One comment,
Thank you.
John.
Great to talk to you as always.
John, one comment before you go. Do you think Bill Belichick's going to coach college football?
I would be very interested to see it. I don't know that his personality matches the environment of college football with all the recruiting and, managing a younger group, considering he's pretty harsh at times. But I do think that he would transform that program at UNC that has not seen much success in recent years. I think he'd be very desirable to play for.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
John,
I would like to see.
we're going to talk about it a little bit later on the show, so you got a little bit of a preview of someone else's take. I like a nice third perspective on the topic that we're doing. So thank you, John. Like I said, as always, you're welcome to come on the Harvey Hour, and I appreciate you taking some time out of your night for us.
Night, John.
Thank you both. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
All right, let's get into our next topic here of today's show. So the Rams edged out the Buffalo Bills 44-42 in an absolute thriller, snapping Buffalo's impressive 7-game winning streak. Josh Allen put on a historic performance, becoming the first NFL player in the modern era, since the merger. I think Otto Graham did it back in the 50s. But he's the first NFL player to throw for 3 touchdowns and rush for 3 touchdowns in a single game. But that wasn't enough. The Bills' defense faltered late. It was not able to stop Matt Stafford the entire game, essentially. I think they only had 1 punt, or at least their first punt came, in the fourth quarter. And Matt Stafford and the Rams' offense did an absolutely tremendous job. Puka Nacua, first multi-touchdown game of his young but incredible career so far. So I don't know, how big of a loss is this for Buffalo? And does this win for the Rams make them a serious and legitimate Super Bowl contender?
Super Bowl contender? I'm
they
not
just
sure
beat the
about
crap
that.
out of the Bills offensively.
Yeah. I would say it is a big loss for the Bills because now their chances for the 1 seed are pretty much gone, I think. I mean, there are many games left to play now, 4 games left to play, and they've lost 3 games. And the Chiefs, however they continue to do it, they've only lost 1. So 4 games to play, being 2 games behind the Chiefs, I don't see them catching them. I don't think it's going to happen. Did it hurt Josh Allen's chances for winning the MVP? I don't think so. I mean, he had a game that for the ages there. He had 3 touchdowns passing, 3 touchdowns running. He was 22 of 37, 342 yards. He had 10 rushing attempts, 82 yards, 3 TDs each. That's amazing. It's the first time a player has ever done that. Yeah? That's MVP performance. So I don't think he hurt his chances there of losing the MVP. I do think it hurts Sean McDermott's chances of being Coach of the Year, though, because as we keep seeing, he makes, while he's a good coach in terms of putting the team together and all that, the in game, when it comes down to the wire and you got to make a good decision, he's got a track history of not making very good decisions here. And he did it twice in this game. The goal line situation, forcing them to take a timeout when Josh Allen couldn't get it in on the tush push, and the third down 10-yard holding penalty that they accepted when it would have been 4th and 6. It wound up being 4th and 5, and the Rams wound up getting it. So those 2 things happening, those were 2 very poor decisions. I think those had a factor in the outcome of the game.
Well, I'm going to say this, and I don't think people are necessarily going to disagree with me, but maybe they will about the bigger impact of it. With Sean McDermott as the Bills head coach, the Bills will never win a Super Bowl. Because we've seen time and time again Sean McDermott make very, very poor decisions in the biggest moments. We've seen it already this season. Against the Houston Texans, backed up basically on your own end zone, what do? You throw it 3 times. And the Texans, what do? They go right down, and I think they're able to tie it or kick the game-winning field goal. What are you doing? Run the clock out. Get it to overtime. Try to create, some sort of, calm before the storm here. And in this game, Tom Brady called it out. What are you doing running a tush push on the 1 yard line with a minute left to go when you have 3 timeouts? You're going to need to kick an onside kick anyway. Or because of this, you had to kick an onside kick. At least you could have kicked it deep if you scored on that one. Whether it be a rushing touchdown in a different way, a passing touchdown, or whatever the case may be. Anything but a run up the middle. It could have been, 3 throwaways and you finally score a touchdown. It didn't matter. You had 3 timeouts and you had to burn one because of a late game coaching decision by Sean McDermott. If Sean McDermott is the head coach of the Buffalo Bills, will they be successful in the regular season? Absolutely. Will Josh Allen have to be Superman, though? Absolutely. And will they ever win a Super Bowl? No. With Sean McDermott as the head coach of the Buffalo Bills, they will never win a Super Bowl because in crucial situations, for instance, here's another one, 13 seconds left in the game. What does he do with the Chiefs have, I think, 3 timeouts? You play bracket coverage and cover the out-of-bounds line. What do the Chiefs do? They dink and dunk, I think, 2 or 3 passes up the middle of the field, kick the field goal, and beat them. I think they kicked the field goal to send to overtime, and then they beat him in overtime. But that 13-second game should have sent the message that Sean McDermott is not great in late-game situations. This season against the Texans, late-game situation. This game, late-game situation. So, yes, I thought the defense was terrible, but so was the Rams' defense. You also, we have to say this. I don't think it would have mattered regardless because they blocked a punt in the second quarter. And they scored a touchdown off it. The Rams did. It didn't matter if Sean McDermott doesn't, do the tush push. And, you had 3 timeouts and an opportunity to stop him. And Josh Allen, we already saw in the second half, the offense exploded onto the scene. So there's no doubt in my mind they would have at least had an opportunity to kick a field goal and win if they were able to stop him. But I think this sends sort of a massive question mark into 2 things. 1, Sean McDermott's late game decision making. And 2, this is another example of a running game that dismantled the Bills' defense. Ravens, how do they open up with? Like an 89-yard touchdown by Derrick Henry. The Ravens never look back. I think the Houston Texans did a perfectly fine job using Joe Mixon effectively. And in this game, Kyron Williams had a phenomenal start. They ran him, I think, 29 times. He had 2 touchdowns on the day. The Rams didn't punt until the beginning of the fourth quarter. At one point, were 10 out of 11 third down conversions, and they ended, 12 of 15, 11 of 15?
11 of 15.
The defense, and they were on a massive winning streak because their defense was able to take the ball away every single game. And they only had, I think, 1 game during the winning streak of only 1 takeaway. Before it was all multi-takeaway games, yeah. This was the first game this season where the Bills' defense didn't have a single takeaway. I think the Bills have to be better. The Bills have to be better on all facets of the game. Special teams, obviously, defensively. Offensively, they did as much as they could, although I would have liked them see, utilize James Cook a little bit more than they did. I know he had, 3 yards to carry, but he's a massive part of the offense. Joe Brady relies on him heavily. So, game plan around late game situation, I don't trust Sean McDermott.
I'm with you on all of that, but I will say also, as a little bit of a counterpoint to it, Sean McVay did a fantastic job in this game. I mean, he's assembled what is a very lethal offense when the offensive line plays well, and that's one thing that Brady pointed out. He was surprised how well the offensive line of the Rams played, and when they do, boy, watch out, because Stafford and Nakua, I think they might be the NFL's most dangerous tandem, right? But even with the win, the Rams only have about a 27% chance of making the playoffs, so they're still hanging around there at 7-6, but they got the 49ers on Thursday night, and they need their O-line to play like it did against Buffalo, and I'm not sure they can do it 2 games in a row.
I could agree with that. Sean McVay did a tremendous job offensively. The entire Rams offense did a tremendous job, and why can't they be? Super Bowl contenders, probably not, but can in the playoffs they upset a true contender?
They got to get into the playoffs first, Nate. They're only 7-6.
I know, but in NFC West, I mean,
they've got 3 of the last 4 games are against division opponents. So
let's take a look. Arizona, they are so up and down. Well, currently
I think they
Their
beat
one game-
Arizona. I think they're going to beat Arizona.
I agree. Seattle, their defense has stepped up big time.
That would be the big game.
San Francisco, they're reeling right now, but I think a loss to San Francisco would be massive.
Well, that'd be the end of
It'd
that.
basically be a no factor because then you're, 2 games behind Seattle, a game and a half behind Seattle. And that would be a massive loss for you. So I think that if they do make the playoffs and they pull this out, why can't they upset somebody first round of the playoffs that everybody thinks is a true contender? Like, for instance, if they go up against, let's currently look at the seeding. If they go up against a Tampa, hell, even a Detroit, although they probably get the 1 seed. So let's say Philly. Why can't the Rams beat Philly?
I think the only way they get in
if the fractures keep
the
going
only
for
ways
Philly.
they get in is winning the division, though, don't you think? I mean,
Right.
they ain't going to get the 7th seed.
Right. So if they win the division right now,
How many games are they behind?
They're 1 game behind.
What, in the division?
Yeah.
I mean, in the wild card. The wild card is
wild card. No,
they're gonna get the wild card, so they got to get the division.
1 game. Washington's 8-5. They
So who does Seattle have left?
Seattle's final games go up against 2 home games: Packers, Vikings, at Bears, at Rams. 3 NFC North teams.
Yeah,
That's brutal.
Yeah.
But we don't know what the Bears going to do. That's a Thursday night game,
yeah.
by the way.
So the Seattle Rams game could be a very big game.
There's a very good chance that Seattle drops the next 2, which then opens the door for literally everybody else in the NFC West.
Yeah,
It's going to be a hell of a year for the NFC West teams.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued.
It's an exciting ending.
Yeah, I agree. All right, we're going to take a 30-second break, but coming up, Dallas Cowboys. What a fitting end to their season. And also, Bill Belichick, could he be coaching in college? We have an interesting report that came out today. We'll talk about that right after this quick break.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM data gift.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name's Nathan Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Tuesday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of today's show. So, the Dallas Cowboys suffered another crushing loss, this time 27-20 to the Bengals on Monday Night Football. A late special teams blunder, which is, they blocked a punt, and then it went beyond the line of scrimmage, and then I want to get the name correct. Amani Oruwariye. I think I got that right. I apologize if I don't. He muffed the punt. But because they blocked it and it went beyond the line of scrimmage, it became a live ball, just like a regular muff punt. The Bengals recovered it, they kept possession, and then Jamar Chase had a 40-yard game-winning touchdown, which drops Dallas to 5.
No, it wasn't the game he went in, was it? It was a tie. That tied it up and then went into overtime and got the win.
No, they didn't. This was not an overtime game.
I'm sorry. I got that wrong.
And also I'll say that Micah Parsons was extremely frustrated in this game. They lost to Marion Overshone, who tore his PCL, ACL, and MCL. He will probably be back in 2026. But don't fear, Dak Prescott, Stephen Jones, and Micah Parsons all believe that head coach Mike McCarthy should be coming back for this game, or for next season. So it's interesting. I want to know, how disappointing was this loss for the Dallas Cowboys, as well as the Bengals finally got a string of luck. So
pretty disappointing when you block a punt, you wind up losing the ball.
Right.
I never seen that before. I think it's the first time I ever saw that. Why did the Cowboys returner even get near the ball? All he had to do was run off the field. He touched the ball, and that made it live, and the Bengals recovered it. That was I couldn't get over that. And then they, as you say, they went right down the field and scored, and I have it wrong. I thought that was tied it up, but that put them ahead. They was tied at that point, right? And then they went up 27-20. Yeah, I got that wrong. I'd say the block punt, the mental blunders there is what drove Micah Parsons nuts. He stormed off the field after the game with no handshakes to anybody. And I think that says to me, does he really want to win, or is he making this about himself again? It's sort of like the A.J. Brown situation. Why is he doing that? I mean, you win and lose as a team. I think it's a bad look by Parsons in terms of leadership And wait till you get into the locker room if you want to blow up and go nuts. I think doing it out on the field is a problem. I got a question for you on this. Does sportsmanship matter in professional sports, or is it just about the business?
Depends on who you are.
Micah Parsons, he's not very sportsmanlike in that situation. What was he? What do you think? Is there any sportsmanship in professional sports, or is it just about the money?
No, I think there's sportsmanship, of course, because think about it. The entire team generally shakes hands after the game. Win, loss, draw, doesn't matter. They shake hands. You know, in some cases, you have players like Micah Parsons. Tom Brady didn't shake hands with Nick Foles after the Chicago loss when it was his fault, you know, doing like the 4 because he forgot it, it was 4th down. No, I think there's sportsmanship. I think that it was a brutal loss for Dallas.
Yeah. Do you think there's mutual respect after the game is an important part of the game? The handshake and all of that?
I'll give him a pass. It was a crushing loss. The Bengals, they did everything right except not know the rules. Because they
did not know the rules. No, that's a coaching issue.
That is a coaching issue, which is a problem with Mike McCarthy. But think about it. They finally ran the ball at a nice level. Rico Dowdle had 18 carries for 131 yards. We haven't seen this rushing attack at all this season, really. Cooper Rush actually did a pretty decent job. He wasn't horrible in this game. He did throw 1 interception, but he had barely above 50% completion percentage, but he had 2 touchdowns. He did pretty decently. They ran the ball at a great clip, which, again, doesn't really bode well for the Bengals' defense. My guess is the DC probably gets fired at the end of this year. Joe Burrow was having a tremendous game. Jamar Chase had a phenomenal game, and it was tied. And they blocked the punt. They did everything right, except not know the rules of if it crosses the line of scrimmage, get the hell away from the ball. Because it's just a normal punt after that. They did everything right, and it would have been in Brandon Aubrey's field goal range. They would have kicked the game-winning field goal, and we'd be talking about how really unlucky the Cincinnati Bengals are.
Yeah.
Because
they finally got some luck.
This is the first string of luck that they ever got this season.
I've never seen that before, where a punt gets blocked and the team that punted the ball winds up with it, first down. And the field position was better.
Yeah.
The ball bounced up the field.
Yeah.
Wild.
They would have been on like the 40-yard line.
Wild. I never seen anything like that.
This is a brutal loss, and now
that's it for the Cowboys. They're done.
Their season is essentially done.
Do you think Trey Lance now starts?
No.
You don't think so?
Nope.
Why not?
Because when you had 4 wins and you didn't bring in Trey Lance,
but they still thought they had a chance.
When Cooper Rush was performing very poorly against Houston, I think Trey Lance barely played in that game, and it was at the very end. You kept Cooper Rush out there. So I'm not sure what Dallas is exactly doing. I think they're just trying to save face. I think Mike McCarthy is also trying to save face because now he has the players' support to come back. Oh, God. Mike McCarthy. Well, I respect him as a head coach, and he has the same amount of playoff appearance percentage as Bill Belichick does. He's just not great. In today's NFL, he's not great. And if he's going to be the head coach of your team, yes, you'll do great in the regular season. But even in this season, you didn't do that well. But yeah, you'll probably do pretty good in the regular season, and in the playoffs when it matters, Mike McCarthy or a quarterback will not be good enough to succeed and move you on beyond the wild card round, or if you somehow make it to the 1 seed in the NFC, make it beyond the divisional. So for me, I would get a new head coach. There's better out there. That's my take on it. Let's get into our next topic here, and I'm sure you'll like this, although I think it's actually really shocking. Bill Belichick is actually looking at potentially working for the University of North Carolina, the North Carolina Tar Heels. He recently went on the Pat McAfee show to talk about what his future looks like if he made sure to emphasize this, if he were to be the head coach of the Tar Heels. Listen to what he said on the Pat McAfee show.
Let me put this in capital letters. If.
Yeah.
I-F.
Got it.
If I was in a college program, the college program would be a pipeline to the NFL for the players that had the ability to play in the NFL. It would be a professional program, training, nutrition, scheme, coaching, techniques that would transfer to the NFL. It will be an NFL program at a college level.
Now, I want to preface this. There was a report that came out, I think today or last night, and bear with me for a couple minutes here. So Belichick now has reportedly agreed to become the next head coach at UNC, pending the school's approval of his demands. He handed UNC a 400-page organizational Bible outlining everything from salary minimums to staffing plans to a two-staff structure featuring a coaching team led by Belichick and a recruitment staff run by a college GM requiring a significant buyout. This proposal calls for historic levels of investment and requires sign-off from the AD, chancellor, trustees, and boosters. Belichick created a vision of his manual tailored specifically for UNC, touching on every detail of the program and school operations. It sounds exactly like his NFL career so far, his NFL coaching career. So I don't know, can you realistically see Belichick being the head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels?
I can. I'm not sure he helped himself get the job by giving them the 400-page document. I mean, I think the reasons NFL teams haven't called is because they know Bill Belichick demands total control. He's not going to be ceding any responsibility to really anyone, except in this situation, it sounds like there will be a GM for recruiting. He won't be bothering himself with that. But I think in terms of recruitment, he's such a smart guy. He said, if I hypothetically, what would my program look like? It would stressing that it would be a pipeline to the NFL. Now, what kid doesn't want to play in the NFL? Right? Who thinks that they've really got it? Some of these top tier recruits, they said, I'm going there. This is going to train me to be ready to play when I graduate, or if I leave early, I can go to the NFL and have a good shot at starting if I play well under Bill Belichick, particularly if he could put a winning program together. He's got some people down there that really want him. The chairman of the board has pulled a team of people together that are really campaigning for Belichick to get the job. He's had a 5-hour meeting with the UNC chancellor about the job. But it makes me wonder a little bit about really who's leading the search here. Is it the CEO of the chairman of the board for UNC? Is it the CEO of the health of the system that's interviewing him for the job? Who is the one that's really out there that's going to make this deal happen? I mean, he's given him a ultimatum. Here's my 400-page plan. We have to follow it to a T. It gives me all the control, basically, except around the recruiting. Take it or leave it.
And this is why Belichick has not learned a single thing. There was a report by Pro Football Talk saying that Belichick is very surprised that no NFL teams have contacted him. This is why. This is why the Falcons didn't hire him for this season. Because
maybe they should have. Look at their record.
The writing is on the wall. You give Belichick personnel power, it's going to blow up in your face. Look at the past few drafts and few free agent periods for the Patriots. Show me someone of value. Kendrick Bourne. That's it. Seriously. Who has Belichick picked up offensively that you could say, that's a really good move, Belichick?
Drafted Tom Brady.
In 1999.
Well, 2000. I'm sorry.
It's 2024. And he's unemployed. As a coach, I should say. He hasn't learned a single thing. He hasn't learned that the reason why teams aren't calling him is because he wants power. He hasn't realized that when he is the de facto GM, or if he has personnel power, that he doesn't make the right moves.
Mm-hmm. I think if he hangs around and waits, he'll get a call.
He can't evaluate quarterbacks.
I think there's a good chance that he'll get a call from the New York Giants, because I think if they wind up 2-15, both the GM and the head coach will be gone.
He can't analyze quarterbacks, because his option would be, apparently Mac Jones was not his pick, it was Robert Kraft's pick. He wanted Davis Mills. He also drafted Bailey Zappi in the 4th round and thought he was good. He decided to bring in Cam Newton when he was injured and washed up. And he actually didn't perform that poorly.
I'm not so sure. I mean, Cam Newton played well. He played well until he got COVID. And after that, he didn't play well.
So weeks 1 and 2.
No, it was
maybe
longer
week 3.
than that. I think it was.
It wasn't close to
those
midseason.
First games, they were great. They were good.
His last game before COVID would be against Seattle. So that would be, I think, week 3.
Yeah.
I'll look it up to confirm it right now, but I'm pretty sure. 2020. Week 2 in Seattle. Yeah.
Did he get the COVID right after that? I thought it was later. I thought he had COVID later than that. I thought it was like game 5 or 6.
Well, that would week 5 was the bye week. Week 4 was against Kansas City. I'm pretty sure because Seattle it was the 2-point conversion or something like that on the goal line that everybody knew was coming.
It was a weird season.
It was early in the year.
It was a weird season.
It was weird. But let's just throw let's throw caution to the wind and say, you know what? Yeah, Belichick got the job. How successful would it be? I think pretty successful.
I think it would be very successful
because the Brady called this out actually a lot. He says that college is no longer about developing a system and learning. It's all about playing and then moving to the NFL and not really learning. Brady sat behind 5 quarterbacks and had to make his way over the years to become the starter. And even when he was a starter, he still split reps with I'm forgetting his name. Drew Henson, that's his name. He still split reps with him. So Brady's kind of right in that regard, and Belichick's kind of bringing that same idea where this is going to be a system. This is going to be a process. This is not going to be somewhere where you play for a year and another transfer or go to the NFL. This is going to be you're going to be here, you're going to learn how it works in the NFL. The longer you stay, the more ready you'll be, and then you'll go. And I think that's actually the right way to do it. My only problem is offensively, because there's reports out there that Belichick wants to bring in Josh McDaniels.
I think that'd be a good
Matt
choice.
Patricia.
I think that'd be a good choice too.
Steve Belichick, who I think is currently a coach for Washington, he would be the head coach in waiting. I think other McDaniel's son or McDaniel's brother, he would also be on the staff. So it's basically Patriots Junior. That's essentially what it'll be.
That's what you get.
But the last time we saw Matt Patricia be a prominent figure on the Patriots team was when he was the offensive play caller of the Patriots. I don't think
that's what his role will be there.
No one thought that would be his role in 2022, but it was.
Yeah, but he'll wind up being a defensive
as just
coach.
Come on back, I want you back. So I think when it comes down to it, defensively, because we saw what the Patriots defense looked this year, it's shaky. It's not the same level as it was when Belichick was the head coach. I think if you're going there and you're a defensive player, I think 5-star recruits will go to UNC just to be coached by Bill Belichick.
I do too.
I do not see quarterbacks and receivers.
Yeah, you've never
maybe tight ends.
Have you ever heard a college coach say that they were making their program into a pipeline for the NFL and market that?
Well,
I think that's a brilliant scheme.
Well, normally it's college to the NFL. So how would you create an NFL culture if you're just a college coach? You can guess, but unless you have the experience
Bill
of an
Belichick
NFL
was in the NFL his whole career.
That's
how he's going to create the culture. He knows how to do it.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Normally, it doesn't go from NFL to college and build an NFL 2.0 in college. Normally, it's from college to the NFL. You can't build an NFL program in college if you don't have experience winning in the NFL. Mm-hmm. That's why kind of Nick Saban, he did the reverse and it didn't turn out. He actually talked about
I'll say one thing here. I think Belichick has the upper hand in this situation right now because the timing's an issue. The transfer period opened on Monday. They didn't want to lose. UNC doesn't want to lose their best players. It leaves the roster potentially in flux, and also the candidate pool is shrinking. Right? They were talking to John Summerall, who took the job at Tulane. They were also talking with the Army coach Jeff Monken and Georgia defensive coordinator Glenn Schulman, and the former Arizona Cardinals and Panthers head coach Steve Wilkes. So there's still a few people out there, but Bill Belichick. They spent a lot of time talking to Bill Belichick.
5 hours,
but they need to make a decision here, or they potentially hurt their team.
I think if you're a tight end and any defensive player, I would go to UNC if Belichick's the head coach. If I'm offense, and I'll even include running back in there because I think Ramondre Stevenson it was a nice draft pick for Belichick. But if you're a quarterback, offensive lineman, receiver, complete waste of time. Unless Josh McDaniels is going to be only offense, and Belichick is not going to get anywhere close to the offensive side.
Well, that's the way it was when he
and also
was,
evaluating offense. If Josh McDaniels can evaluate offense, I'm fine with that. Belichick cannot get offense right.
I think the big issue here is the role of Steve Belichick on this team and UNC's resources, given the 400-page plan. They're going to go through that with their calculator and add up what it's going to cost, what's Belichick's salary going to be, and the resources for the staff. It's going to be an expensive program.
Indeed.
It better be a winner right out of the blocks, or that will be not good for Belichick.
And, honestly, in Belichick's defense, you take a look at the AP poll right now for the top 12 teams in the college football playoff, because they expanded to 12 teams. We got teams in the top 4 you wouldn't be expecting. Just general names. I know the season performance, you could argue, like, for instance, Boise State, I believe, is number 3. Ashton Genty's doing a phenomenal thing this year. Breaking records and just an all-around phenomenal prospect. But normally, if you think Boise State, you don't think college football playoff. Arizona State, you normally don't think college football playoff. Those are 2 of the top 4 teams right now.
I think it's great that they've expanded it to 12 teams.
I agree.
Bill Belichick gets in the mix. He has a pretty good shot to get into the top 12, I would think.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think that with the expanded playoffs...
Can you picture him, and maybe he wins a national championship in college, huh? Wouldn't that be something? 8 Super Bowls and a national championship in college when you're and get it when you're 72 years old or 73. He may not get his first year.
SMU is also in as well.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these teams, you do not even remotely associate them with the college football playoff. I think if Belichick, because they went 6-6 this past season, and Mac Brown left, their former coach. They fired Mac Brown. Belichick, I think, if you're a defensive player, a tight end, a running back, I would go to UNC. Because I think Belichick could do a pretty good job at evaluating it. If you're an offensive lineman, a quarterback, or a receiver, run for the hills. Belichick cannot evaluate offensive talent for the life.
He's going to bring in Josh McDaniels to do that.
Yeah, but Belichick, if he's organizing
worked well in the NFL,
a 400-page organizational Bible, and he has everything. He literally has everything laid out to a T.
Can you imagine that? When did he find time to do that? I mean, that's a lot of work. I mean, to put that all together. And he's on TV all the time now. When did he find time to do all of that?
It's probably the same contract he had with the Patriots, just modified for college rules.
I don't know.
Because think about it. Salary minimums, staffing plan, staffing structure. He was the GM, so he didn't need that.
Well, at least they know what they're getting. At least they know what they're getting. Yeah, they know what they're getting.
A defensive head coach who failed the last 3 years of his NFL
what they're getting is a guy who's going to take full control of the thing, and they're there to watch the games. That's what they do. Because if they try to get involved,
you might as well
mess with him, it's going to be a disaster.
You might as well just make him, the current owner of North Carolina, make him the president at that point. I mean, if he's laying out everything to a T, you might as well. All right, let's get into Thursday's games. We talk about this generally every Thursday. This time, NFC West brawl. The 7-6 Rams take on the 6-7 San Francisco 49ers in a crucial NFC West matchup. The Rams are riding high after their 44-42 win over the Buffalo Bills, while the 49ers looked very strong in their 38-13 victory against the helpless and hopeless Chicago Bears. And also, this has playoff implications, massive ones, because the 49ers, even though they're down their top 2 running backs and arguably their top receiver, all out on the IR with injuries, they still have a shot at the playoffs, which is crazy to believe. So I'm curious. This game is pivotal to both teams. Who takes the victory in your mind, the Los Angeles Rams or the San Francisco 49ers?
Well, the Rams power ranking at 15 versus the 49ers at 17. The Rams win over the Bills, one of their greatest offensive displays of the McVay era. I mean, that game was an amazing game. They scored 44 points. The win gave the Rams an outside chance to make the playoffs. If they win out with 3 games in their division, so they've got a shot. A tough one, but they do have a shot if they win out. The defense had their hands full with the Bills. They gave up 42 points. Josh Allen having a career game. The special teams had a block punt for TD, so that was good. The offense was electric, 11 of 15 on third down against the Bills. Who wants to play them right now? Who wants to play the Rams right now with Cooper Kupp, Nakua, and Stafford playing at their high? They're playing the best football of their careers right now, I think. Who wants to play them right now? Nobody. The 49ers, on the other hand, they were expected to beat the hapless Bears, right? Even with key players missing, and they did it. The blowout win was a taste of what could have been the season. However, with the injuries that they've had and some bad luck, they were on the outside looking in. They're still technically alive, but barely. They have a 9% chance right now to win the division, the 14% chance if they beat the Rams. Some big catches, but left the game. No, I'm talking this guy. What's his name? Garendo.
Isaac Garendo. Yeah.
Isaac Garendo.
He's banged up. He might not play.
2 TDs and some big catches, but he left the game with a sprained foot, so he may not play on Thursday night. So I think it's going to be a close game. I got the 49ers pulling it out 28-24.
As do I. We both had the 49ers winning. I don't think the Rams could replicate what they did against the Buffalo Bills. I also think the 49ers defense will do at least a better job than the Buffalo Bills did. And also, I think they have a better head coach, which in late game situations, when you know you have 3 timeouts, I know he's had some problems, like in the Super Bowl, not getting his players fully up to speed with the new rules. But I do think that Kyle Shanahan, with playoffs on the line, in an NFC West game where you've always dominated Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan will be able to pull it out. I think when you look at it, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua are the best wide receiver duo in the NFL. When fully healthy, and we keep seeing it week after week after week, you give Matt Stafford, a half second more, he'll eat up your defense like he just did against the Buffalo Bills. First time the Bills defense didn't have a single takeaway all season, and that was against this team. The Rams are getting healthier. They're basically fully healthy in large parts of their team, especially on offense. Offensive line has improved with Nacua and Kupp back. They're a very, very dynamic duo. But the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan, I'll trust what history says, and I'll say history repeats itself. Kyle Shanahan takes the win over Sean McVay. We have the exact same score, 28-24. They do cover the 2.5-point spread. And that wraps up Thursday Night Football's picks. I'm actually doing pretty well in the point spread. I'm actually doing better than I did last year. Last year I was 66%. This year I'm 67% on my money line picks. Point spread, different story. But I'm about 52% on that one instead of, I think, 62. It's a rough year this year.
We still got 4 games.
We did have a winning week this week, though, so I don't really care. Yeah. I keep having winning weeks, so it's always good. But for this episode of the Harvey Hour, we appreciate the constant support, and we appreciate you tuning in. My name is Nathan Harvey. That's my dad, Stephen Harvey. We have been the host of the Harvey Hour. Catch us Friday for Week 15 coverage. Season's ending soon, but yeah, Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, Week 15 coverage, right here on YouTube.
Good night, Grandpa.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM data gift